Dr. Quorum's translucent blue hands trembled as she clutched a datapad, her normally steady bioluminescent pulse flickering erratically. Around her, the pristine, domed research facility atop the shimmering cliffs of Tryon 4 buzzed with frantic activity. Alien scientists of various species rushed between glowing consoles, speaking in rapid bursts of incomprehensible technobabble. Holodisplays floated in midair, streaming live feeds of Earth, specifically, a chaotic laboratory in New York City. "This can't be real," Quorum muttered, her voice trembling. Her compound eyes fixated on the screen, where a human researcher was demonstrating a device of horrifying potential. The contraption, barely larger than a loaf of bread, emitted a soft hum as it bent spacetime in visible, rippling waves. The human, young, disheveled, and impossibly calm, was speaking into the camera, explaining the principles of their invention in terrifying simplicity. The alien scientists around her were aghast. One, a towering insectoid, clicked its mandibles nervously. "They've bypassed quantum stabilization. That's impossible. We've spent millennia trying to." "They didn't bypass it," Quorum interrupted sharply. "They solved it." She slammed the data pad down, the glowing symbols on its surface shifting to display an urgent analysis. The humans had created a portable wormhole generator, an invention that not only defied centuries of interstellar scientific consensus but had the potential to collapse the very fabric of controlled galactic travel. If this technology fell into the wrong hands, or even remained in human ones, it could destabilize entire star systems. "This is why the Accord forbade human innovation from entering galactic collaboration," Quorum growled. "We knew they were dangerous. But this," she gestured to the screen, where the human device shimmered like a miniature black hole, "this isn't just dangerous. This is catastrophic." The room fell silent, save for the hum of machinery. Every alien present understood the unspoken truth. Humans, with their reckless ingenuity, had once again crossed a line that no other species would dare to approach. Quorum inhaled deeply, her bioluminescence steadying. "We need to act. Now." On Earth, Dr. Elise Harper leaned back in her chair, the faint hum of the wormhole generator filling the air like an ever-present heartbeat. She knew her live demonstration had gone viral, millions of views already, thousands of comments flooding in, but she didn't care. This wasn't about fame. This was about solving problems, breaking barriers, and, yes, maybe flipping a middle finger to the stuffy intergalactic community that had written humanity off as too dangerous to collaborate with. "Dr. Harper," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see her lab assistant, Max, wide-eyed and pale. I think you should see this." He gestured to the large monitor on the far wall. Elise's stomach tightened as she saw what Max was pointing to. It wasn't the comments section or the endless flood of reaction videos. It was the live satellite feed. Above the Earth's atmosphere, shimmering like a star, was an unregistered vessel. "Alien. Crap," Elise muttered, her bravado slipping for just a moment. "They are not wasting any time." The vessel descended rapidly, its sleek, organic-looking hull glowing with unfamiliar energy signatures. A squadron of smaller crafts fanned out from its sides, heading directly for her lab. Elise sprang into action, grabbing a portable shield generator and shoving it into Max's hands. "Get out of here," she said, her voice firm. "Take the back exit and don't stop running." "But..." "No buts. Go." Max hesitated for only a second before obeying. Elise turned back to the wormhole generator. She had expected some blowback from the Accord, sure, but not this fast. And not this aggressive. Her fingers flew over the console, initiating a rapid sequence of commands. The generator hummed louder, its core glowing brighter as it began to spool up. Elise had one advantage. The aliens might fear human innovation, but they had no idea how unpredictable human ingenuity could be. The lab shook violently as the first alien craft fired a warning shot. The beam of energy didn't hit the building directly but sliced through a nearby communications tower, sending a shower of sparks and debris cascading down. Elise ignored it. Her focus was singular: survival. The wormhole generator reached critical activation. Elise smiled grimly. "Let's see how you like a taste of chaos." She slammed the activation button. In the Accord vessel, Quarrim watched in horror as the Earth facility erupted into a swirl of spacetime anomalies. The wormhole generator wasn't just functional, it was unstable. Ripples of distorted space surged outward, creating micro-tears in reality that flickered ominously before collapsing. One of the Accord's smaller crafts got too close and was instantly swallowed by a brief, jagged vortex. "Pull back," Quarrim barked into her communicator. "Maintain a safe distance until we can assess." Her command was cut short by a sudden lurch. The entire vessel groaned as an unexpected gravitational pulse slammed into it, throwing Quarrim and her crew off balance. She scrambled to a console, her hands flying over the controls. "She's destabilizing spacetime itself," one of her subordinates shouted. "This isn't innovation, it's insanity." "No," Quarrim muttered under her breath, "this is human innovation." She knew better than to underestimate the species. Humans thrived on chaos. They didn't see boundaries, they saw opportunities. And now, one of their brightest minds had weaponized that very unpredictability against them. "Prepare the containment field," Quarrim ordered. "If we can't neutralize her device, we'll have to isolate the entire area." "But that could." "I know what it could do," Quarrim snapped. "Just do it." Back in the lab, Elise gritted her teeth as the wormhole generator spun wildly out of control. Her calculations had been rushed, and the device was operating far beyond its intended parameters. But she wasn't about to let the Accord waltz in and confiscate her work, or worse, use it against humanity. The lab's lights flickered as another alien craft buzzed overhead, firing a precision energy blast that narrowly missed the generator. Elise grabbed a nearby plasma rifle, one of the many inspired human inventions she'd cobbled together from rumors of alien tech, and took aim. The shot wasn't perfect, but it was enough to clip one of the craft's wings, sending it spiraling into the nearby forest. "That's for the comms tower," she muttered. Her victory was short-lived. The Accord's containment field began to deploy, a massive, shimmering barrier descending from the mothership above. Elise could feel the air grow heavy, the field's energy disrupting the very molecules around her. She knew what it was, a localized spacetime isolation field. If it fully activated, her lab, and the wormhole generator, would be cut off from the rest of reality. "Not happening," she growled. Elise adjusted the generator's output, redirecting its energy into a focused burst. The lab trembled as the device fired a concentrated wormhole directly at the containment field. The collision of energies created a massive shockwave, shattering windows and sending both human and alien machinery into a frenzy. The containment field flickered. For a brief moment, it seemed like Elise had won. Then the generator began to overload. Quarrim watched the scene unfold with a mix of awe and dread. The human had turned her own device into a weapon, using it to fight back against a technologically superior force. It was reckless. It was brilliant. And it was exactly why the Accord feared human innovation. "She's going to destroy herself," one of her subordinates said. "No," Quarrim replied grimly. "She's going to destroy everything." She made a decision. "Prepare the extraction team. We're going in." The subordinate hesitated. "But the field." "Override it," Quarrim snapped. "If we don't act now, this entire sector could collapse." As the Accord extraction team descended toward the chaos, Quarrim couldn't help but feel a pang of respect for the human scientist. Elise Harper was everything the Accord had feared, and everything it had underestimated. The Accord's extraction pods pierced the Earth's atmosphere with precision, their sleek forms glowing with residual heat as they descended toward Elise Harper's lab. Each pod carried a squad of elite operatives, genetically engineered, cybernetically enhanced, and equipped with technology centuries ahead of anything Earth could imagine. But as they neared their target, the scene below was far from the controlled operation they had anticipated. The lab was a war zone. Space-time distortions rippled outward from the wormhole generator, warping gravity and tearing small chunks of reality asunder. Trees near the facility's perimeter twisted and stretched unnaturally, their branches curving like liquid toward the epicenter of the chaos. Bolts of energy erupted sporadically, incinerating everything they touched. Inside the lab, Elise Harper was no less chaotic. The generator's hum had grown into an ear-splitting roar, and the console in front of her spewed sparks as she frantically worked to stabilize the device. She knew she was running out of time. The generator was seconds away from a catastrophic implosion that would take half the continent with it. Her fingers danced across the console, entering complex algorithms as sweat dripped down her face. And then, the Accord arrived. The extraction team landed with surgical precision, deploying from their pods in a synchronized wave. They were humanoid in shape but moved with an unnerving fluidity, their armor reflecting the warping light of the wormhole's energy. Each carried a weapon that glowed with a strange, shifting energy, tools designed not to kill but to neutralize. They weren't here to fight, they were here to contain. Elise Harper, the leader of the team, called out, his voice amplified by a translator unit. Stand down immediately and surrender your device. You are endangering your planet and violating the intergalactic accord. Elise turned to face them, her expression a mix of defiance and desperation. You're here to take it, aren't you? She shouted over the deafening roar. To lock it away, just like you've done with every other human invention that scares you. The leader stepped forward, his movements calm and deliberate. Your technology is unstable. If you do not surrender it, millions will die. Millions will die if you keep holding us back. Elise shot back. Her hands never stopped moving on the console, recalibrating the generator even as she argued. You don't get it, do you? Humanity doesn't innovate because it's safe. We innovate because it's necessary. One of the extraction team members raised their weapon, aiming it directly at Elise. Permission to neutralize her, they asked in a clipped, robotic tone. Negative, the leader responded. She's the only one who can shut it down. Elise smirked. Damn right I am. Without warning, a gravitational pulse emanated from the generator, sending the extraction team sprawling. Elise barely managed to grab onto the console as the lab's floor cracked beneath her. Equipment toppled, sparks flew, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with volatile energy. One of the Accord operatives was caught in the distortion, their body twisting unnaturally before the team leader yanked them free. We're out of time, the leader barked. Activate the temporal stabilizers. The operatives moved quickly, planting devices around the lab's perimeter. The stabilizers emitted a low-frequency hum, their fields pushing back against the generator's chaos. But it wasn't enough. The wormhole was growing, its swirling energy pulling debris, and soon, operatives, toward its center. Elise's console beeped urgently. Her calculations were nearly complete, but the generator was now operating beyond her control. She needed to manually adjust the core, but doing so meant stepping directly into the storm. Cover me, she shouted, grabbing a protective vest from the wall. The Accord team hesitated. We're not here to help you, human, one of them snapped. You want to live. Elise shot back, already moving toward the generator. Then shut up and do as I say. To their leader's credit, he gave the order. The operatives formed a defensive perimeter around Elise as she approached the core. The energy was blinding, the heat unbearable, but Elise pressed forward. Her protective vest began to disintegrate, the material unable to withstand the intensity of the wormhole's energy. Elise, you can't survive this, the leader called out. Watch me, she muttered under her breath. With a final, desperate lunge, Elise reached the generator's core. Her hands shook as she manually adjusted the energy flow, redirecting the unstable output into a controlled collapse. The wormhole roared in protest, its swirling mass shrinking and destabilizing in rapid succession. And then, everything went silent. The lab was plunged into darkness. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was Elise's ragged breathing as she collapsed to her knees. The generator was dormant, its core dim and lifeless. The Accord operatives exchanged cautious glances. The leader approached Elise, his expression unreadable beneath his helmet. You're reckless, dangerous, and insubordinate, he said. But you just saved your planet. Elise looked up at him, her face pale but defiant. You're welcome. Back on the Accord mothership, Dr. Quorim watched the footage in stunned silence. The human scientist had done the impossible, not only stabilizing the wormhole generator but doing so under unimaginable pressure. It was a feat that no Accord scientist would have dared attempt. Quorim's subordinate spoke up hesitantly. The generator has been contained, but the human, she's still defiant. What do we do? Quorum's bioluminescence pulsed thoughtfully. She couldn't deny the evidence before her. Human innovation, reckless as it was, had just averted a disaster of galactic proportions. But it also confirmed her deepest fears. Humanity's ability to innovate wasn't just dangerous, it was unpredictable. And unpredictability was something the Accord could not control. Prepare a report for the High Council, Quorum said finally. We need to re-evaluate our approach to humanity. The subordinate frowned. Re-evaluate? You mean, collaborate? No, Quorum replied, her tone grim. Contain. By any means necessary. The High Council chamber of the Accord was a grandiose spectacle of interstellar power, a massive, spherical space bathed in shimmering hues of starlight. Suspended above a simulated cosmic backdrop, the Council's platform hovered in zero gravity, surrounded by holographic projections of galaxies, data streams, and vital planetary statistics. Seated around the circular dais were the Accord's most powerful figures, their forms diverse and majestic, representing countless advanced civilizations. Dr. Quorum stood at the center, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with anxiety as she presented her findings. Holographic displays hovered around her, replaying footage of Elise Harper's daring containment of the wormhole generator. Every detail was scrutinized, the rapid calculations, the reckless bravery, the sheer audacity of human innovation. This, Quorum declared, her voice echoing through the chamber, is why humans are the greatest threat to galactic stability. The council members murmured among themselves, their voices translated into a chorus of alien languages. One of them, a towering crystalline entity known as Elder Vast Rex, leaned forward. His voice was deep and resonant, like the grinding of tectonic plates. Your evidence is compelling, Dr. Quorum, Vast Rex rumbled. But what do you propose? Humans are already under strict surveillance. Their technological development is monitored, their access to galactic knowledge restricted. What more can we do? Quorum's patterns flared sharply, a sign of intense emotion. Surveillance is insufficient. Humans have proven time and again that they thrive under constraints. They take what little they have and turn it into something far beyond what we anticipate. It's not just their technology we fear, it's their mindset. They innovate not out of abundance, but out of desperation. Another counselor, a gelatinous being with multiple eyes, shifted uneasily. Are you suggesting a preemptive strike against Earth? Such an action would violate the principles of the Accord. I am suggesting, Quorum said, her voice firm, that we contain humanity in a way that ensures they cannot endanger the galaxy again. Isolation, planetary lockdown, and if necessary, neutralization of their leading innovators. The chamber fell silent. Even for the Accord, this was an extreme measure. It was in that silence that a voice cut through, clear and calm. You misunderstand humanity entirely. The council turned to the new speaker, a tall, robed figure who had been observing from the shadows. His form was humanoid, though subtly alien, with silvery skin and eyes that glowed faintly. He was Ambassador Lurin, one of the few Accord officials who had spent extensive time on Earth. Ambassador Lurin, Vast Rex acknowledged, his tone wary. You have insight into this matter. Lurin stepped forward, his gaze steady. I have lived among humans for decades. I have seen their ingenuity, their resourcefulness, their capacity for both destruction and creation. And I can tell you this, fear is the wrong response. Quorum bristled. Fear is the rational response to a species that creates wormhole generators in a garage. Perhaps, Lurin admitted. But humans innovate because they must. Their world is fraught with challenges, resource scarcity, environmental collapse, geopolitical strife. These pressures forge a species that adapts and overcomes. What you see as recklessness, I see as survival. Quorum's patterns dimmed slightly, a sign of irritation. Survival at the cost of others. Do you not see the danger? I see the potential, Lurin countered. If harnessed correctly, humanity's innovation could propel the galaxy forward. Imagine if their creativity were guided, their energy focused on collective goals rather than individual triumph. And how do you propose we achieve that? Quorum asked skeptically. Collaboration? Integration? They would weaponize our knowledge against us. Lauren smiled faintly. Not if we show them a better path. Humanity's greatest strength is also their greatest flaw, they are fiercely independent. But they are also capable of extraordinary unity when faced with a common purpose. Before Quorum could respond, a sharp alarm echoed through the chamber. The holographic displays shifted to show a live feed from Earth. A fleet of Accord ships hovered in low orbit, their weapons systems active. Below them, the wormhole generator Elise Harper had stabilized was now glowing ominously, its energy levels spiking once more. "What is this?" Vast Rex demanded. Quorum's subordinate appeared in the hologram, his expression panicked. The human scientist, Elise Harper, she's reactivated the generator. We believe she's attempting to open a stable wormhole to one of our restricted zones. Quorum's patterns flared with alarm. She's trying to steal our technology. No, Lawrence said, his eyes narrowing. She's trying to prove a point. Elise Harper stood in the heart of her ruined lab, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. The wormhole generator pulsed with energy, brighter and more stable than before. She had upgraded it in secret, using salvaged parts and knowledge gleaned from her brief encounter with the Accord's technology. Her team of rogue scientists worked around her, a mix of idealists, renegades, and visionaries who shared her belief that humanity's future could not be dictated by alien overseers. "Elise," one of them called out, "the Accord ships are moving into attack formation. They are charging their particle cannons." "I see them," Elise replied, her voice calm. "But they won't fire." "How can you be sure?" "Because if they do, they'll destroy the generator and lose the chance to understand what we've built." As if on cue, a transmission crackled through the lab's comm system. It was the Accord fleet commander, his voice cold and authoritative. "Elise Harper, this is your final warning. Power down the generator and surrender yourself, or we will be forced to take action." Elise activated her own transmitter, her voice ringing with defiance. "You're afraid of us, aren't you? Not because we're violent or destructive, but because we can do what you can't. We solve problems you wouldn't dare tackle. And that terrifies you." The commander's reply was curt. "You've left us no choice." The first particle cannon fired, its beam slicing through the atmosphere. But before it could reach the lab, the wormhole generator emitted a massive energy wave, intercepting the attack and redirecting it harmlessly into the sky. Cheers erupted from Elise's team, but she remained focused. Initiating wormhole sequence. Prepare for stabilization. Above Earth, the Accord fleet scrambled. Ships repositioned, shields were raised, and tactical commands were issued in rapid succession. But even they could not keep up with the sheer audacity of Elise's plan. The wormhole opened, a swirling vortex of energy that defied all known laws of physics. On the other side was a vast expanse of uncharted space, rich with resources and untouched by Accord regulations. Elise turned to her team, a triumphant smile on her face. "Welcome to humanity's next frontier." And then, the real fight began. The swirling vortex of the wormhole cast its eerie glow across the ruined lab, pulsing with an energy that seemed alive. Elise Harper stood at the control panel, her eyes fixed on the shimmering gateway. Beyond it lay uncharted territory, a sector of space the Accord had long kept hidden from humanity. The wormhole was stable, but barely, its edges flickering like a candle in a storm. Around her, her team of rogue scientists worked feverishly to maintain the delicate balance. Above Earth, the Accord fleet was in chaos. The wormhole's activation had disrupted their communications and thrown their targeting systems into disarray. The once coordinated fleet now resembled a panicked swarm, their sleek ships darting erratically as they tried to regroup. In the High Council chamber, Dr. Quorum watched the unfolding events with a mixture of horror and vindication. "This is exactly what I warned you about," she exclaimed, her bioluminescent patterns flaring in agitation. "They've created a gateway into restricted space. Do you understand what this means? Humanity now has access to resources and technologies that could destabilize the entire galaxy." Ambassador Lauren, standing at the edge of the dais, remained calm. "Oh," he said evenly, "they've just opened the door to something far more dangerous than we anticipated." The council turned to him in confusion, But before anyone could ask what he meant, a sudden spike in the wormhole's energy readings silenced the room. The holographic display showed the vortex expanding, its energy signature intensifying at an exponential rate. "Something's coming through," Quorim whispered, her voice trembling. On Earth, Elise's team was the first to notice the anomaly. The wormhole, which had been stable moments ago, was now fluctuating wildly. Strange energy signatures began to emerge from the vortex, patterns that didn't match any known Accord or human technology. Elise, one of her scientists, called out, panic creeping into his voice, "We're picking up massive energy readings from the other side. Something's trying to breach the gateway." Elise's heart raced as she studied the data. Whatever was coming through wasn't human. It wasn't Accord. It was something else entirely. "Shut it down," she ordered, her voice firm. "We've gone too far. We can't risk it." But the Accord fleet, another team member, began to protest. "Forget the Accord," Elise snapped. "If we lose control of this thing, it won't matter who's up there, they'll all be dead." Her hands flew across the control panel, inputting commands to destabilize the wormhole. But it was too late. A massive shockwave erupted from the vortex, throwing her team to the ground and shattering what remained of the lab's equipment. When Elise looked up, she saw it. A massive, shadowy form emerged from the wormhole, its presence overwhelming. The creature, or machine, or perhaps both, was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its surface shifted and shimmered as if made of liquid metal, and its many eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. It moved with a grace that belied its immense size, its appendages curling and uncurling like the tendrils of some ancient leviathan. The room fell silent, the only sound the low, resonant hum of the creature's energy field. Elise could feel it in her bones, a deep, thrumming vibration that seemed to resonate with her very soul. And then, it spoke. Not in words, but in thoughts, a psychic broadcast that filled the minds of everyone on Earth and in the Accord fleet above. "You have summoned us. You have dared to breach the veil. Now, you will face the consequences." In orbit, the Accord fleet's panic turned to outright terror as the creature emerged fully into real space. Its sheer scale dwarfed their largest ships, and its energy readings were off the charts. The fleet's weapons fired instinctively, beams of light and projectiles streaking toward the intruder. The creature barely noticed. It raised one of its appendages, and the attacks were absorbed into its shimmering surface. A moment later, it retaliated. A single pulse of energy rippled outward, disabling the fleet's shields and rendering their weapons useless. Ships drifted helplessly, their crews scrambling to regain control. On the ground, Elise and her team watched in horror as the creature began to ascend, its massive form casting a shadow over the city. She knew they had unleashed something far beyond their understanding, something that even the Accord, with all its power, could not hope to contain. "We have to do something," she said, more to herself than to her team. "We caused this. We have to fix it." One of her scientists, a wiry young man named Semi, shook his head. "How? Our equipment is destroyed, and the Accord won't let us near their tech. We're out of options." Elise's mind raced. There had to be a way. The creature had emerged because of the wormhole, it was connected to it somehow. If they could destabilize the gateway completely, maybe they could force it back to wherever it had come from. "Semi," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides, "do we still have access to the portable disruptor array?" Semi hesitated. "It's damaged, but maybe." "Why?" "Because we're going to use it," Elise said, determination hardening her features. "If we can amplify its output and aim it at the wormhole's core, we might be able to collapse it. But we'll need to get close, dangerously close." Her team exchanged nervous glances, but no one protested. They knew the stakes. Minutes later, Elise and her team emerged from the ruins of the lab, the disruptor array strapped to a makeshift transport. The creature was now fully engaged with the Accord fleet, its attention divided as it swatted away their futile attacks. It hadn't noticed them yet. They raced across the shattered city, dodging falling debris and stray energy blasts. The wormhole loomed ahead, its unstable energy casting an eerie glow over the landscape. As they approached, The creature turned its many eyes toward them. Elise felt its psychic presence invade her mind, a cold, probing sensation that made her stomach churn. "You think you can stop us?" the creature's voice echoed in her thoughts. "You are but insects, crawling in the dirt." Elise gritted her teeth, forcing the intruder from her mind. "Keep going," she shouted to her team. "We're almost there." They reached the wormhole's edge, the disruptor array humming with power as they set it up. The creature loomed above them, its tendrils reaching down like the claws of some ancient god. "Activate it!" Elise yelled. Samir hit the switch, and the array fired. A beam of concentrated energy shot into the wormhole, destabilizing its core. The vortex began to collapse, its edges folding in on themselves as the energy spiraled inward. The creature roared, a deafening sound that echoed across dimensions. It lashed out, its tendrils striking the ground around them, but it was too late. The wormhole imploded in a blinding flash of light, taking the creature with it. When the light faded, the sky was clear. The wormhole was gone, and the creature with it. Elise collapsed to her knees, the weight of what had just happened finally catching up with her. Her team gathered around her, their faces a mix of relief and exhaustion. In orbit, the Accord fleet slowly regained control. Their ships, battered but intact, began to descend toward Earth. For now, the threat was over. But Elise knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's innovation had saved them, but it had also exposed them to the galaxy, and whatever lay beyond. As the first Accord ship touched down, Elise stood, her gaze steely. "They fear us because we innovate," she said quietly. "And now, they'll fear us even more."